curveball here, Wilbon, before we get to the nuts and bolts of the Bears win, because I know you're a fan of Caleb, you're a fan of Ben Johnson, and I believe you're a fan of Troy Aikman as well.
Huge.
So a lot of Bears fans have been critical of the broadcast last night about not giving a lot of credit to Caleb and the Bears.
Tell them to shut up.
Well, wait a minute now. Hold on. I'll play this. This is from Ben Johnson in his interview with Jeff Joniak. First, he reacts to the win, and listen to him talk about the broadcast.
Yeah, I think you said it best. I love that perspective. It sounded like from that game the other night, a few people weren't particularly pleased with how we were winning right now. So that's the. I woke up this morning and my kids were watching the second half before school, and so I heard some of the commentary. But listen, in this league, any way you can find a way to win is a big deal.
So he was watching the television tape, and then Caleb put on social media within the last half hour a bunch of pictures from the game and saying it was good to be back in the nation's capital. And then he wrote, quote, "It was lucky," and he attributed it to TA, meaning Troy Aikman, I would assume. So you have the quarterback and the head coach who found some issues.
Their job is to have a chip on their shoulder at all times. Good for them. I don't care what they thought of the broadcast. I don't care. It's good that they feel that way. Any chip they could put on their shoulder, I hope is the size of a boulder. And I hope they keep it there the whole season. And I hope it helps. Good. Let me hug each one of them. Now, do you think I actually care what they thought of the broadcast? Not in the least.
What do you think of the broadcast?
Love the broadcast. I watched it. I meant to be at the game last night, but I had a little setback with some stuff medically, so I couldn't get to the game last night, which is probably a better thing. I'm much better behaved at the game, actually. When I'm forced to watch on TV, I'm out of control, like these fans who call and say stupid stuff, because I am a fan who says stupid stuff. But I love the broadcast. I love Troy Aikman. But I don't want to hear it. I don't waste my time with that stuff.
Mike, I know how much you value the running game and good defense, especially at the line of scrimmage. What were you more impressed with, their ability to stop the run or their ability to create the run?
Well, given that they were dead last, Tommy, it was great one of your texts back to me. Just keep running the ball. I love that. Wow, that's a great question. I think, man, I still err on the side. This happens when you grew up in Chicago and you watch people who were 51 and 50 and 95 and 99 and those in the 54 all your life. I think it's be better against the run. They were dead last. They were either 31st or 32nd.
31st. The Dolphins were dead last.
So when you're 31st, they weren't. Were they 31st in running the ball too?
I don't think they were that far down, but they were not. They were not one of the league's top rushing attacks.
But one of the things we had seen against the Cowboys was Ben Johnson gets stubborn. And just remember when they ran the ball 11 straight plays?
Yeah.
And so he was clearly trying to manufacture ways to come up with a running game, which one is necessary on its own independently, and two helps Caleb. So, man, I don't know which way to go. You tell me now. You've been on both ends of this thing where you were part of a great rushing offense and you were privy to a great rushing defense. Which do you think was more important?
I thought stopping the run because of the challenge that the Commanders presented. And
especially with that rookie who had run so well the previous week.
Yeah, and look, I think at some point, I felt at some point with what they've added up front with Tooney and Dahlman and Jonah Jackson, and I thought at some point they would improve a little bit. I was wandering in the desert thinking that they were never going to be able to stop the run, and I was thrilled to see what Dennis Allen came up with and how the players, executed the plan. So if I had to say which one I was more surprised by, it was probably stopping it or being better. Yeah. What did they give up on the average last night? I haven't seen. 4 yards per carry. They gave up 124 yards, and
as opposed to 6.1 per carry against the Cowboys.
Yes. And it was a Washington rushing attack that was averaging 156 yards and 6 yards per carry, which was best in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, having a bye week certainly helped them in various ways. I thought that was one of them. And by the way, if people, stopped being rabid and listened to the broadcast, they would have heard many of those things emphasized by Buck and Aikman. I don't know what it is they expect to hear. Again, I don't care what the coach or quarterback hears. Good for them. I want them to be angry like rabid dogs at all times. The rest of us can be a little bit more reasonable.
Michael, where do you think this team goes from here? Last year, that loss in the last seconds spiraled them out of control, and everything changed because of that. Do you think this could have the springboard symptom where now after winning 3 in a row, they've got the schedule in their favor at least the next 4 weeks, that maybe they could get a boost? Maybe,
but I'm not going as far as that. I mean, that was extreme. That was the most extreme loss of the year. Nobody's going to keep showing for years of 38-yard field goal going in. And that's fine. It's a great win, and they needed to feel good about that win. It wasn't tumultuous. It wasn't something that is going to stick with you and cause you nightmares the rest of your life. If you remember last year, I said I didn't think the Bears would win another game. They won one. After that, and they were 4-2, should have been 5-2. But that loss was the agony of defeat. And so I don't think it's going to have a similar effect. It can have a great effect just because you've got the games you talked about coming up. Now the Ravens are going to be coming off a bye. They don't play this coming week, and the Bears get the Saints. So we get the Saints and we get the Ravens coming off a bye. That's going to be difficult because the Ravens are going to be as desperate as any team in the league that week. So, I mean, that's going to be difficult.
I think they're going to get Lamar and Roquan back for that game. They're expecting as well.
Yeah, they're expecting them both back. So that's going to be a difficult game no matter what the records are. And then Cincinnati, you look at that game now and you say, okay, that's a game we need to get.
Given the Giants after that.
And the Giants, I know the Giants are going to be up and down. Again, I would hope the second rookie quarterback we get in the first 8 weeks of the season will be one we put down. We didn't do that with Minnesota, which was a lost opportunity. And we need to do that with you don't just let rookie quarterbacks have their way. We blundered through our way through that one week 1 against Minnesota. That shouldn't happen again.
We're talking to Michael Wilbon in the Yingling guest hotline. It's Waddle and Silvy. But I understand, no one could have predicted or thought in the grand scheme of things that it was going to turn into what it turned into last year. The cool thing.
Yes, we did. I just did.
Well, wait a minute. You said they wouldn't win another game. I think after the Patriots
win another game.
Not
they
after the
Washington.
You did not say that after the Washington game.
Go back and get it.
I will pull the tape.
I said it on PTI every week.
All right. Well, we'll find that out. But here's the point. That this rivalry now, as you talked about last week, there may not be a great relationship between these two quarterbacks. They're the number 1 and number 2 overall quarterbacks. What are the chances? Think about it, too. They've played each other in the first 2 years, and they're not division rivals, and both games were walk-off wins for each opponent.
Yeah.
So, this is the start of and you know this, too. You talk about it all the time. The Bears and then Redskins in the 80s had a great rivalry.
Yes, they did. They had NFC playoff games with people. Joe Washington, essentially the great running back, Joe Washington, his career was sort of put down by a Bears defense, which just mangled him back in the days where you could hit people just as hard as you want to. There were games. Oh my goodness, I have nightmares about Brad Muster fumbling in a game that the Bears were trying to run out the clock. Mike Ditka, after his heart attack, his first game back was at RFK.
Yes.
And he promised not to try to walk up the stairs, and he would stay in the press box for the game. which of course he did not.
Right.
I remember how excited Ditka was because he loved Joe Gibbs, and they had he loves him now, but they had a great rivalry. And I remember being one of the few reporters the day that Mike had his first press conference after the heart attack, and he was sitting under a big blanket. And I didn't know Mike well. I was terrified of him because he was Mike Ditka to me in a different way he was to other reporters. But Mike looked right at me and he said, "You make sure you tell the people in Washington how excited I am to be there." It was just wow, how cool is this? Yeah. And he meant it because he played in Washington. He didn't play in Seattle or he didn't play, he might have played in Tampa. I doubt it. But he didn't play in those places. He played in Washington. It meant something. And so when you get Caleb, going home and having a game in his hometown, and people sort of missed out on that. They seem like they don't know where Gonzaga High School is or where Washington and Landover are, which are essentially where Chicago and Evanston are. They don't seem to understand it. I don't understand national media. But that's a big deal. Caleb's high school coach was there. And my son was there, and Matthew, one of the things he called and said, "Dad, we got a huge percentage of Bears fans here tonight." And so that was encouraging here. But it depends on the schedule maker. And by the way, when I say schedule maker, I mean the formula. It depends on the formula as to whether they'll play again. They don't get. It's not a match made. It's not like when you go to the first tee at your golf club and somebody says, "Yeah, you two and you two." It's a formula that will tell you who plays home, except for one game. So I can do without it. It's way too stressful for me, but I'm sure for most people they'd like to see it.
Mike, did last night's win in any way, shape, or form soothe the pain from a Cubs loss in Game 5?
No, because one is postseason and you get eliminated. So they're very different things. I got 2 out of the 3 things I hope for this weekend, Northwestern and the Bears. I got 2 out of the 3. If you would ask me going into the weekend what I could have in order, I'm going to say Cubs first. Mm-hmm. And it might have been only because that was a postseason game. It's a game where you win. You're in the championship series. No, those 2 things are not alike, not in any way, shape, or form to me as a fully invested fan of all Chicago sports, not just, one or the other. It's not like certain cities where people say, I follow the Commanders, but I don't watch the Nationals or the Wizards or the Capitals. No, that's not my life. I follow. I don't even root against the White Sox. They're not my team, but I don't root against them. But no, the Cubs are what I was hoping for, and the Cubs to me came pretty close to maxing out. I thought the 2 best teams, maybe in Major League Baseball, but certainly in the National League, I thought the 2 best teams in the National League this summer were the Cubs were the Brewers and Cubs. Now, I know, and I said to you guys, I thought the Dodger lineup was better. I thought the Philly lineup was better. But I thought with just what they were getting out of that team for the whole stretch, not for one half or another, but the Cubs and Brewers. And so now, but the Dodgers are one up after that dramatic win on the Brewers. But no, I would have taken the Cubs win over anything this weekend.
I was there, Michael, and I thought when Tucker came to the plate, I forget what inning, 6 or something, it was first and second, nobody out, and a 3-1 count.
That was a spot.
I'm like, this is where Cubs legends are made. You come through here, and it will be all be worth it. And then he gave you a really bad last 2 strikes. He didn't even have really good swings.
Didn't even have the good swings. I've been reading everything I can read about what is expected and, these free agents and these guys who should be back and these guys who shouldn't. And he's a fine player, one of the best everyday players in the league the past 7 or 8 years, but I'm not 400. I'm not going 300. What I could get with that, now there's got to be some great scouting. You got to get lucky. How much did Bregman get, by the way?
Well, he signed like a $120 million deal, I think, with opt-outs. And so I think the expectation is that he will opt out. Like, we'll see. And the Cubs thought at one point that they were going to get him.
Could get him.
Yes.
I know. I remember that. And, No. You gotta make the difference. In basketball, it becomes there are two things: quarterback, the position of quarterback, and then in the NBA, it becomes fairly obvious when you are one of those guys who's going to make now $250 million, $300. That guy's going to get that amount, and he can be worth that amount. In baseball, I don't see that. I mean, the Cubs could get a haul, not in a trade because they can't trade. No, just in terms of scouting, superior scouting. You guys know how I believe in scouting. I talk about this all the time with the Bulls and what they're going to be able to do or not able to do based on who they bring in, who you can draft at 6th or 11th or 13th or 18th or 21st or in the first 2 picks of the second round, Jalen Brunson and Nikola Jokic. I don't see that with Tucker. I'm not getting that vibe. And so I'm not paying that amount of money.
All right. Michael, great stuff. We appreciate you. Have a great week, okay?
Thanks, Mike.
All right,